Welcome to the Cash Car Convert Podcast, episode number 27.
You're listening to the Cash Car Convert Podcast with James Kinson.
Hello and welcome to the Cash Car Convert Podcast. My name is James Kinson, and you're listening to the podcast where cash cars are cool and auto debt is dangerous to your financial future. On today's episode, I'm going to talk to you about an article that I read back in November of 2013. It's called 5 Reasons to Buy a New Car. It was written by Ravi Kumarr, and you can find it at groundreport.com. Now, I'll have a link to it in the show notes, so you can go out and take a look at this article and decide for yourself what you think about it. But you may be wondering, why in the world is James going to talk about an article he read back in November? Well, I think I have a very good reason for this. I went out and looked, and 13,544 people have viewed this particular article at groundreport.com, and that's up about 10,000 people from the roughly 3,000 people who had viewed it when I first discovered the article. And this really concerns me because this article doesn't really do anything than just throw out broad, generalized statements. It doesn't back it up with any facts, and I think there are enough people out there who already think they quote-unquote need a new car without somebody writing an article that just further solidifies the myth around new cars and really the myth around used cars as well. So I thought it was important to add some information to clarify some of the points that Mr. Kumar made, and then also take on the 5 quote-unquote reasons that he gives for buying a new car, one-on-one, and try to provide some facts around his statements to see if maybe we can't come to a different conclusion. Now, Mr. Kumar opens his article straightforward enough by stating that buying a new car by any other method than cash can be considered a quote-unquote financial loss. Obviously, I agree with that. I think you should buy all of your cars with cash. So we're in agreement at this point. And I would further say that unless you can purchase a new car with cash, you really shouldn't buy one. But I'm going to add one more condition to that. You should also be able to afford the major depreciation hit that buying a new car costs you. I think unless you can really, meet both of these criteria, then you really and truly cannot afford a new car, or for that matter, any car, right? So any car that you can't afford to pay for with cash and take the depreciation hit is really a car you shouldn't buy. Now, what I want to do is try to bring the depreciation story a bit more to life than what's done in the article. So I went out and pulled some information from Experian and Edmunds.com. And according to Edmunds, the average new car today costs about $32,000. If you go out to their depreciation calculator, you can take a look at depreciation over the life of a car. I've chosen 4 years in this case, and what you find is that a new car will lose 49% of its value over that 4-year time period. And this is based on the Edmunds.com depreciation calculator, which I'll have a link to in the show notes. This 49% loss on this $32,000 car over the 4-year period results in a $15,680 loss for the average new car. This works out to be an average of $3,920 every year. Now, $3,920 is 1 month's salary for somebody who's making $47,000 a year. So I question whether most Americans can afford to take, roughly 1 month salary and just blow it on depreciation. Something that they don't think about because they don't get hit with it until they sell their car. So this isn't like a real number until they sell their car and all of a sudden they've really lost this money for real. And so I think this is a hidden little secret that really everybody knows about, but they just kind of accept and ignore because, again, it doesn't hit them on a monthly basis. If they were having to pay depreciation monthly, I think they would view it differently, and I think many more people would think twice about buying a new car because that $15,680 of depreciation loss over 4 years, it really doesn't wind up being averaged out over 4 years. What really happens is that for a $32,000 car, you lose $7,900 in value the first year, which is why I encourage people to buy cars that are at least a couple of years old, and you can still find good quality used cars out there at that price range. And again, this is assuming you can pay cash for that vehicle. you will avoid much of the depreciation hit that's happening with these new cars. And one more thing not to forget, on top of this depreciation, we're making car payments on this new car if we finance it. And experience says that these car payments are currently $471 a month. Now, the 4-year total for this works out to be $22,600 roughly. Now, that works out to be $5,600 each year on top of the depreciation number. Now, one thing I'm going to add here is that the average new car loan is 65 months. So these $471 car payments wind up sticking around a lot longer. So my point in all this is, to tie this all together, is that depreciation and financing and car payments, when you run all that stuff together, people are spending a lot more on these cars than I think they're aware of. And I think if a lot more people would take a look at this with their eyes wide open, they would come away with a different conclusion than that they need a new car. In his article, Mr. Kumarr doesn't lay out the numbers as I have here, but he does acknowledge that people will pay interest on a depreciating asset. He does also further acknowledge that buyers will pay more than the cost of the car due to paying interest. So he's fair-minded there, but he doesn't put any numbers behind it to really show the actual damage. And that's what I tried to do with my previous section there. Now, he closes his opening paragraph with the following, and I quote, "However, most people prefer to buy new cars as it can be quite difficult to maintain old cars, which require frequent maintenance and repairs." I personally find this pretty funny. I too prefer a new car, but I don't buy one because I know the numbers and I know the cost and I know the impact it has to my financial future. And what I think is that most people who buy new cars either don't know or don't care about the impact it's having to their financial future, which is really the whole reason that this podcast exists. And I'm going to try to help educate those people and help them make some better decisions and get out of the auto debt business. Now, the other point I want to make here is he talks about the repair costs and how difficult it is on these used cars. And I just want to point out that with the average car payment being, roughly $5,600 a year for a new car, I can drive a quality used car and spend that money, much better, and my repair costs will be much less than $5,600 a year, I assure you. By driving a quality used car, I also don't take that $3,900 a year depreciation hit. So I don't think he makes very good points by just making this broad, generalized statement about most people preferring to buy new cars because it can be quite difficult to maintain old cars, which require frequent maintenance and repairs. Yeah, that just doesn't really track. I will certainly acknowledge that some cars require some repair, but I think he's much overstating this. All right, so now we're going to jump into Mr. Kumarr's 5 reasons for buying a new car. And again, I'm going to take these on one by one. The first statement that he makes is old cars require major repairs. That's his statement. Well, I'm going to acknowledge to you that some older cars can require major repairs, but buying used is cheaper than new. And this information comes from the New York Times in their article, Auto Leases Entice, but they're still costly. And again, I'll link up to this in the show notes as well. I recommend you read this article. In it, buying a used car is shown to be a cheaper alternative over a 6-year ownership period than either buying new on credit or leasing a new car. In this article, leasing was shown to cost $5,756 more than buying, and financing a new car was shown to be $10,277 more than buying and financing a used car over the same 6-year period. Well, I find those numbers pretty compelling myself, and I hope you do as well. It's pretty amazing to think that buying a good used car, and in the article, they were just getting one that was a couple of years old. They weren't buying an old clunker. And yet, leasing was right at $16,000 more expensive, and buying new was a little over $10,000 more expensive. So whether you purchase or lease, you're going to pay considerably more to do that. And I think that really helps debunk this whole myth about reliability and why it's better to buy a new car for a reliability's sake. And the fact is, it just costs so much to buy a new car. You can make a lot of repairs. You can do a lot of preventive maintenance on a vehicle and still come out much, much cheaper than buying new or leasing new. And so I hope that's the message that you get out of this, because it's certainly what I get out. And that's me debunking the first of Mr. Kumarr's points. Mr. Kumarr's next point is low interest rates. Interest rates are at all-time lows. And for those buyers who are buying on credit, this can be a powerful incentive. There is one gotcha, and that is not everyone will qualify for these low interest rates. In fact, most people can't. The other more relevant point is that used cars also get lower interest rates. Certainly not as low as new, but the savings of buying a used car more than make up for this in most instances. And it's kind of unusual right now, but according to Bankrate.com, the average 60-month new car loan has a rate of 2.96%. For a used car today, the 48-month loan rate is 2.79. So it's actually cheaper interest rate-wise right now to buy a used car with a 48-month loan than a new car with a 60-month loan. That's typically not the case, but that's the way it is right now. I would further state that these are good rates, but I don't see these rates as being a reason, quote-unquote, to buy a new car. And of course, if you're paying cash, this is really not any type of incentive at all. And I certainly want you all paying cash. The next item that Mr. Kumarr raises is that there are a number of tax credits available for buying a new car, and so therefore it's a good reason to buy a new car. So I did some research on this because this was something I wasn't really well versed in. So I went out and did some research, and I found that there's only 2 U.S. tax credits listed, one for electric vehicles and one for plug-in hybrids. Now, each of these credits top out at $7,500. And while this is a lot of money, these tax credits apply to only a few cars. And you can get the entire list at the U.S. government website to review tax credits offered. And I'll link up to that in the show notes. So let's look at the cost of a few vehicles that do have these credits apply to them. And this is at the time that the article was written is where I pulled these numbers. And so this isn't current information, but numbers that I pulled at the time. So at the time, a 2014 Fiat 500e with a price tag of $32,600, and this is according to both Kelley Blue Book and Edmunds.com. So that the tax credit would apply to that vehicle. Another vehicle it would apply to is the 2014 Ford Focus EV, and that price is $34,832. Again, per Kelley Blue Book, and this one's actually $35,995 per Edmunds. Then we have the 2014 Toyota RAV4 EV, and the price for that one, according to Kelley Blue Book, is $49,261, and according to Edmunds, it's $50,660. Finally, we have the 2014 Chevrolet Volt, price $33,430 per Kelley Blue Book and Edmunds. Now, I don't think of these cars as mainstream average American cars. And with the U.S. Census showing a median income of $51,000 in the United States, I don't believe these tax credits are a compelling enough reason for most people to buy a new car. As we stated before, the average new car costs $32,000. The Fiat 500e is the closest one to that price point. Every other vehicle on this list comes in at a higher price point, and some of them significantly higher. So I don't believe that the tax credits are really a good reason for somebody to go out and buy a new car. The next item that Mr. Kumarr lists is gas mileage. Now, it is true that car fuel economy has improved and is at an all-time high according to the University of Michigan's Transportation Research Institute, and it's currently at 24.8 miles per gallon. And this is up from 20.1 miles per gallon in October of 2007 when they started tracking this information. This means that the average new car with an average of 15,000 miles per year on it will spend $1,960 on gas. For the used car, averaging 20.1 miles per gallon, the cost would be $2,418 per year for the same 15,000 miles. Now, both examples assume the U.S. average gas price back in the November timeframe of $3.24 per gallon. That's per the U.S. Energy Information Administration. And once again, that will be linked up in the show notes if you want to go out and take a look at that yourself. driving the new car does in fact save you $458 a year in gasoline costs. I don't think this makes up for the fact that the average new car costs about $32,000 and the average used car costs $16,000. Now, both of these numbers are pulled from Edmunds.com. And my take on this is that I know I can buy a lot of gasoline for that $16,000 delta between new and used cars. And again, those are averages. I know somebody can buy a used Mercedes that costs $50,000 and somebody can buy a new very small Chevrolet or Toyota for $14,000 or $15,000. So I get that. But, I'm talking averages here because I want to hit, the most number of people. And these averages are where most people wind up kind of fitting in. So what I would say is if gas mileage is a priority for you, there are plenty of used fuel-efficient vehicles out there. The Toyota Prius has been around since 2004 and gets great gas mileage. My wife and I actually have a 2007 Toyota Camry hybrid. And while it doesn't get as good a gas mileage as some of the newer hybrids, it still is in the 30 plus mile per gallon range. And I think that's not too bad. It certainly beats the 24.8 miles per gallon that the average new car gets today. So again, gas mileage should not be an issue for anybody and certainly not a reason for them to go out and buy a new car. Next, Mr. Kumar says old cars tend to break down in the middle of the road. However, new cars are reliable and efficient. I mean, this is just such an outlandish statement. Old cars tend to break down in the middle of the road. However, new cars are reliable and efficient. That's a quote. I'm not making this as an offhanded statement. That is a quote from the article. I can't believe it. It's just so wild. It's hard to know where to start with such a generic statement, but let me try. There's an article in autotrader.com, and the article is titled 6 Safe, Reliable Used Cars Under $10,000. Now, this list of vehicles was chosen with the intention of finding safe and reliable used cars for people to buy, because not everybody can afford a new car. In fact, most of us can't. The article used J.D. Power's vehicle dependability study to determine the cars in AutoTrader's article. The J.D. Power study explores long-term dependability of 3-year-old vehicles. There are many other dependable used cars for sale to be discovered, and I would encourage you to read some of my previous posts about how to help you find one, or listen to some of my other podcasts about how to go about finding a good, used, inexpensive vehicle. But I think this dependability study is a good place to go to and let you know that there are good, reliable used cars out there, and not all of them are going to break down and leave you stranded in the middle of the road. Mr. Kumar is right. A new car does come with a warranty, and this could help save repair costs. As with the gas mileage, I don't think this is enough to make up for the fact that the average new car costs $32,000 and the average used car costs about $16,000. Again, I can do a lot of repairs for $16,000. So whether it's gas mileage or repairs, if you're buying an average used car at $16,000, you've got a lot of money to play with before you could get to the point where financially buying a new car would make sense. Now, there's also the fact that there are certified used cars which also come with warranties. And there are also third-party warranty companies, and I've used some of these third-party warranty companies, and I've had some good success with them when I've used them. So, the idea that you have to buy a new car to get a dependable vehicle or one that has a warranty, the numbers just don't work for that. There are too many other options out there. Certified used, warranties that you can buy yourself on used cars. Again, I've had good success with the third-party warranties. So I think that, Mr. Kumar really didn't make any of his reasons very meaningful. And the reason is because he didn't put any facts behind them. And I think the reason he didn't do that is because there weren't really strong facts behind them in the first place. There was just conjecture and hyperbole and broad generalized statements that keep a myth alive that new cars are cheaper to own and that they're less expensive to operate and that they break down less often. The latter one is probably the only one that's true, is that maybe they do break down less often. But if you do your due diligence and find a good quality used car and maintain it properly, I think that argument can be taken away as well. In closing, let me just say I was appalled that groundreport.com allowed this article to be published, and that the broad generalized statements that were made had absolutely no backup. Now, I know this article isn't posted on an automotive site or in a major newspaper, but the fact that 13,455 people have viewed this article is quite disturbing to me. And again, what bothers me the most about this article is just the fact that it enforces a way of thinking that keeps people in debt and driving new cars. When the facts are known, driving a quality used car is a much less expensive choice. As you know, I'm all about people driving cash cars, but at a minimum, you should be driving used. Even if you don't buy into my idea of driving cash cars, at least go buy a used car. Don't take the depreciation hit. And again, it's kind of unique right now, but you can actually get a better interest rate according to bankrates.com for a used car than you can for a new car. So take advantage of that and absolutely drive a used car. I'm not against new cars. I just want to make sure people can afford them and that they don't ruin their financial future by buying new. So I think new cars should be reserved for those who can afford it, the ones who can pay cash and can also afford the depreciation hit that comes with that new car. I hope this episode has been helpful and that it will dispel some of the myths that have been perpetuated by Mr. Kumarr's article and by many other publications out there that really don't do their fact checking and just talk in very broad terms. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Cash Car Convert podcast. In closing, I'm going to ask that you go out and subscribe and leave a rating and review to this podcast. I hope you're finding some value in it, and I would really appreciate getting a rating and review. It's one of the main things, the three things that really drive iTunes to rank a podcast more prominently are subscriptions, followed by ratings and reviews. Now, I don't know the exact formula, but if you do those three things for this show, it's going to be noticed by more and more people, and we'll get more moved up the rankings in iTunes, and we'll be brought more front and center. So I would certainly appreciate that. And one of the things I want to do to that end is I want to give you guys an incentive to go out and do that. And currently, I'm sitting at 29 reviews, and so I'm going to ask that you guys go out and give me a rating and review. And when I get to 50 ratings and reviews, I will give away the Dave Ramsey, Rachel Cruz, Smart Money, Smart Kids book as an incentive. And this isn't just a copy of the book. I actually have an autographed copy by both Dave and Rachel, and I will be giving away one of those copies to one of the people that has provided a review and rating for me. And again, I'll do that when I hit 50. So I need 21 more reviews to hit 50. And then I'll contact the person who's been selected, and we'll do a random drawing, and I will give that book away. So if you'd like to be one of the people with a chance to win that book, please provide a rating and review and help me get to the big 50. So I appreciate that, and I do appreciate every listener, whether you go out and give a rating and review or not. I appreciate that you're giving me your time. And I know that there are so many podcasts out there, and there are so many good ones, that you have a lot of choices. And the fact that you're giving me your time means so much to me. So thank you very much for that. This is the Cash Car Convert signing off.
My daddy was the Cash Car Convert.